Um, and we'll also go through Authentisign on that so that you'll do the e-signature portion. So if you're starting out and want to do a new listing agreement, we just come into Innovia and we're going to select the transaction desk icon. And can somebody just verify for me? It should have switched, but you can see transaction desk now. You're still not logged into Innovia. Or I'm sorry, you still just don't see Innovia. You actually see transaction desk. If you can't see transaction desk, this probably wouldn't work out well. I'll wait here for just a second. Thank you. Okay. So in transaction desk, we're going to start by creating a transaction. And we're going to use Realist to populate this. So some of your offices have custom templates set up for listings. We're just going to use the board version today that's got the listing agreement from IAR in it, our real property disclosures. I think agency is in there and a few other things. So I'm going to give this a name. And I'm always boring and pretty much use one of three addresses, but I'm just going to call this one listing docs, or maybe start with the address. I'll do 2511 Woodlawn in Charleston, and I'm going to call these listing docs. So it's always important to give it a name. What we're going to use, I'm going to use the board level listing template, because those have, what a template does is it has those forms in it that we use for, in this case, either a listing or a sale. We can set up lots of different templates for different things, but today we're doing a listing. Now down here on this import data option, this is one of the nice features of our integrated MLS with Realist and Transaction Desk. So this is going to fill out a lot of information for me that I will show you. So I'm going to go Realist from the Decatur MLS. I got a message saying somebody can't see my screen. I believe if you click up at the top, you should have options near that green bar to where you can select what you want to see. But you'll see I've got Realist selected here for Macon County. Now I'm going to change this because the property I'm looking for is in Coles County. And then it asks me for the tax ID. Well, I don't know what the tax ID is. So I'm going to come over here to the right and click tax search. It says I'm in Coles County. If I had chosen that wrong to begin with, then you can change it there as well. Don't typically use unit number, but we will use street numbering. So I'm going to go 2511 and Woodlawn. And I always find that the less specific you can be here, you'll have better luck with the results. So some people want to put in like Woodlawn Avenue, Woodlawn Street, and sometimes that messes up the tax search from county to county. So I'm just going to leave it as Woodlawn and hit search tax data. And you'll see in this case, I only got one that came up, which is the one I'm after. Now, if there was an East Woodlawn or a West Woodlawn or a Woodlawn in Mattoon, those would come up as well. I'm going to choose the circle next to that box and hit select. And then this will fill out the PIN number for me here. It's asking on these listing agreements, what do you want me to be added as? The list agent, the selling agent, neither or both. Well, in this case, it's for a listing agreement, so I want to be the listing agent. I'm just going to hit. This pulls us into a 5-step wizard. This is the same 5-step wizard that you'll see in Transaction Desk no matter what you're doing. And so in this case, you will see some of the information that it populated for us out of Realist. So yeah, we got the street number and street name. It filled out the city, state, and zip for us. It filled out the subdivision for us. One of the things I really like is it filled out that legal description for us. It knows the tax number, the tax ID, the year built, things like that. Really importantly, on step 1 of the wizard on a listing, is we need to fill out a list price. And in this case, I'm going to say $130,000. And if we want to fill out any of our inclusions and exclusions, they can go here as well. So the inclusions, maybe a washer and a dryer, and exclusions, the hot tub. We're going to make sure to go to next. So this is the next section of our screen, or our next section of our wizard. What we're concerned with in this one is the list date and the expiration date. So I'm going to click the list date and get a little calendar that pops up. Let's say we're going to list it tomorrow, and that's going to expire 6 months from tomorrow. Okay. Those are really the only 2 dates we need. We hit next, so we're going to step 3. Step 3 is all about contacts, and this is one of what I think one of the most powerful features of Realist is. You will notice it has me, Paul Brown, as a listing agent, and I'm logged into my appraisal side, which is why it has my brokerage as Corey Appraisal and Consulting. But it has already pulled my seller in, and it pulled that from public record. Now, in this case, this is a single seller, so it's owned by one person. But if you've got husbands, wives, suitors, trusts, things like that, it will pull all those sellers in as an additional contact. If for some reason that seller you know it to be incorrect or it's an estate, you can change that information right here as well. So I'm going to click on Samantha Neal. She's my seller. Right? And you'll see the information we have about her. Now, if we're going to do this for e-signature, we can go ahead right here and fill out an email address for Samantha Neal, or you can do it later on. So for the sake of today, I'm going to go ahead and put in my email address so you can see what Samantha Neal is going to get whenever we send her out these listing docs and disclosures and things like that. 2 other things, if you're using e-signature that you need to fill out, preferred signature and preferred initials. If you're not using e-signature, if you're only using this to populate your paper listing agreements and then you're going to print them out and have live ink signatures, you don't have to worry about either of these. But if you're using e-signature, how does Samantha Neal sign her name? Is it Sam? Does she use her middle name spelled out, which I don't know what that is, but we're going to say she signs her legal name or her preferred name, her signature, Samantha, I just drew a blank, Lori Neal. And her initials, she signs as SLN. Her legal name, this is how it's going to populate on the forms and contracts. So I'll do Samantha Lori Neal here as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So you will see those are my contacts, 3 of 5. I've got Samantha Lori Neal in there, it's changed. And I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Now these are the forms. These are the forms that came in from the template for a listing. So you will see we've got our exclusive right to sell with dual agency disclosure and consent included, and that's the one from IAR. If you're using a different form, then we would set that up for you in your template or work for you to set up in that in your template. We've got our real property disclosure report. We've got our disclosure of radon hazards, and we have our lead-based paint disclosure. Now, this house, we'll say, was built after 1978, so I do not need that lead-based paint disclosure. So all I'm going to do is come down here to the menu on the right, click it, and hit delete. And that pulls that out of this transaction. It doesn't delete the form forever, doesn't mess it up for future transactions. It just pulls it out of this transaction. So now I've only got these 3. If we had other forms that we wanted to add in for a listing, maybe if you've got a company-specific form, we would typically put that in the template, but you do have access to the entire forms library up here. So I'll go hit add. It pulls them up. And I'll just look here in the Illinois Realtor forms, like maybe we need an additional agent designation. Well, we could just check that, all right, and hit add. And then we have that additional agent designation in here as well. I'm going to pull that out. Again, just click the menu and hit delete. And now we're left with these 3. Step 5 is documents. Documents are the difference between forms and documents. Our forms are things that we can populate and change within Transaction Desk. So you'll see here in just a minute on that listing agreement, we'll be able to make check mark changes to boxes, fill out our commission percentage, our marketing period, things like that. Forms are static documents. So that might be something that you filled out and scanned in. But you still want a signature on it, or you still want to provide it in this listing package to your borrower. I'm going to hit done. And this pulls us into the transaction dashboard for this property. So you'll see we get a details section, a form section, a document section, and an Authentisign section. And if you've customized your layout, it may look a little different, but that's okay. And what I want to do now is I want to go fill out the rest of these forms for this listing agreement. So you can do that 2 ways. Transaction Desk has multiple ways to get to a lot of things. Those are forms, so I can either hit go to forms down here, or I like using this right side menu. And it's open by default, but if you've closed it up, it's this green, they call it a hamburger icon in the upper right hand corner, and it'll open and close that menu. or you can click Forms here. So Forms here, or go to Forms here, both do the exact same thing. And then we're going to finish filling out this listing agreement. So I'm going to open up the exclusive right to sell with dual agency, disclosure and consent included. And you will see we've got the listing contract. Now, a lot of this listing contract has already been filled out for us. So we've got, the brokerage, which I know doesn't make sense in my case, but, you've got your seller or sellers, the property address, city, state, the marketing price. Now, the marketing period, if I want to change that, nothing precludes me. So yeah, I signed the listing contract on the 9th, but actually my marketing period, because they've got some repairs I want them to do, maybe doesn't start till the 19th. So I can make that change. You're doing an automatic renewal right there. This is kind of fun. Put in your percentage. So I'll say 6, and it will automatically fill out the percentage over here. Your protection period, 180 or whatever protection period you're using. And some of my check boxes down here, whichever ones apply, you'll see that I can just fill those out. Do I want it displayed on the internet? Do I want my address displayed? Allow for AVM, logging comments, just check those boxes. Here's your sponsoring broker designates, disclosure and consent to dual agency. If you're doing dual agency, don't worry about any of this information right now. That comes in at a later date, okay, or at a later time. Home warranty, or if you just want to put, not applicable here, that's fine. And any attachments that you're going to hear, that you're going to put here. So some people do fill out the real property disclosure, things like that. Others don't. Really, really important. Once you've made changes to this, we need to save those changes so that they stay in the listing agreement. And to do that, we come up here to our file menu at the top, and we hit save, and then we use the top save button. Not save as PDF unless you want it as a PDF on your computer. We just do file, save, and save. And I'll also show you how to download the entire package of the PDF and save it to your computer. We don't have to exit out of this to go to the next form. We can just come and click on our little house icon. It's got the word transaction forms after it. And here's our real property disclosure report. We don't have to fill out anything on this, but you can look at it. But our seller is going to fill all this out. So you'll see it pre-populated our address, city, state, and zip, and our seller name, or if we have multiple sellers, they would show up here. It will populate the date when they complete it, and they'll also have the option to fill out each one of these boxes. And I'm excited to show you how that works, because it does help guide them through the process, and we'll see that in Authentisign here in just a few minutes. They'll be able to type anything here if they need additional space. And you'll see that their sellers have automatically populated here as well. So that's that. So I made no changes to it, so I don't really need to save it. I could. It's not going to affect anything. And the last one is my disclosure of radon hazards for this one. So again, they'll be able to fill out the appropriate boxes here, right, and sign and date here as well. So no changes to that one. At this point, I am going to exit my forms editor. So I'm going to go to File and Exit. And my listing docs are completed, or they're ready for one of two things. Either one, send out for digital signature, or two, print them for live ink signature. So if you wanted to print these, because you're meeting with your client and just for them to live sign them, is all I need to do is come over here and check these circles. So I've got all 3 of those collected or selected. You'll see that they're now in my basket. My basket has a number 3 up to the right of it. So I can click on that basket. I see they're all in there, and I have a whole host of options up here at the top. So the 2 that people most commonly use, or should I say 3 kind of, are right here. I can choose to print them. So if I choose print, it's going to tell me we're going to print all of those. Right? I hit print, and it goes to my, my printer, or it opens up my print dialog box to where I can select those to print out. And then I'll just close this out. Just a second here and get my print dialog screen off. There we go. Other options, if you want to download this as a PDF to your computer, all 3 of them together in one PDF, that's right here. This is a very nice option if you want to email those to people. Now, don't get this confused with Authentisign, because this won't allow them to digitally sign it. But if you just want to email those documents to them, then they're going to print them out and you're going to sign them and you're going to meet with them to gather them back. You can use this email option right here. And here's a nice feature of this. If I click on email, I can type in my recipient name and email address, but remember, they're already part of the transaction and I already filled out that information. So I can just click the contact card right here. And right here is Samantha Lori Neal, my seller. I can hit select and it fills out her information for me. I can do type a short message here, send, and it goes out. One other option while we're here, just to mention it, all inbound and outbound fax is included in Transaction Desk, and whenever they send that fax back in, it becomes part of this transaction, pulls directly into it. You don't have to do anything special. So we've got a fax option up here as well. Send as fax, all you have to do is include the recipient name and the fax number. Make sure you do check this box, which is a fax back cover sheet, because they do have to have that cover sheet in order for it to come back into the transaction. So if you're wanting them to fax it back to you and for it to come into this transaction, you need the fax back cover sheet. Otherwise, you do not. So those are just some options for printing. However, one of the options, nice options with Transaction Desk that we have is for folks to be able to complete those listing agreements, disclosures, and our radon all electronically. So that's where I want to move to next. So we've got our forms here, but whenever we're doing anything with digital signatures, those are called signings, or those are through a program called Authentisign within Transaction Desk. So again, the easiest way to get to it for me, or what I think, is to come over here and click on signings. Now, additionally, if you were on your transaction dashboard, you would see we've got an Authentisign section down here. And we could hit go to signings there as well. But whether you click on signings here on the right or go to signings from the dashboard, you end up in the same place. So we have no signings in here currently. So we're going to add a signing. And it asks us to name this signing. Well, I'm going to call this signing my listing docs. I can type. You can have signings for lots of different things. You know, hopefully when this house sells, you could have a signing for the purchase contract there. You could have signings for signing off on repair addendums and home inspections. One of the classes that we're going to do in next week is called Authentisign Anything, and we have some participants that are using this and really utilizing Authentisign. But like, what I mean by you can Authentisign anything is if your kid sends home a note from school, or you know the school sends home a note for a kid and you need to sign it and send it back. You know, you can use Authentisign to send that right to the school office. You know, probably not as part of one of your sales transactions, but literally we can have signings for all kinds of different things. So step one is the details part of the signing. And I'll see here I've got listing docs. Our participant order here, we've got to make the choice of either sign in line or simul-sign. Sign in line is just what it says, signing participants sign in order. So if you've got a husband and a wife that need to sign these listing docs, and you have the husband first in participants, the husband has to sign it before the wife can sign it. If you do simul-sign, it's first come, first serve. So it means the husband and the wife, doesn't matter. The wife doesn't have to wait on the husband or vice versa. It goes to both of them at the same time. And that's the default. As far as participants go, think of participants as participants are only the people that you're dealing with in this signing. So in this case, I'm not even going to sign it. Maybe I'm going to sign it by ink, or I'm going to sign it later through Authentisign. But I am just sending these to our potential seller. And she is a remote signer. She's signing this remotely. So I'm going to hit add, but notice I'm not checking me because I'm not included on this. So I've got Samantha Neal here up as my seller. One important note here. If there is a red hand any place on this pin, that means you're missing information. And most of the time, the information that you're missing for that Authentisign to work correctly is either an email address, a preferred signature, or preferred initials. And to change those, you just click on the pin, and you'll see you can change the email address, right? You can change the custom signature or the custom initials. And I'll show you here because we had this the other day. Or if I just mistype and it's an invalid email address, so I took the period out of that. Well, maybe it's not gonna, may not let me change it now. It may be forcing me to fill it out. I wonder if I can take her initials out. so you can see that red hand. Nope, sure can't. Once I'm here, I'm locked into it, and I have to fill those things out before I can continue. So she's our only seller. Step 3 is documents. And I will, Stacy, I will answer those questions here at the end. I'm going to include all of these, or you could include them individually. And we'll hit add. So it's added these 3 documents. You'll see them show up here on the screen in a minute. This right here is just showing you those 3 documents, and that is the order in which they're going to be presented. So it's going to present the contract first, the listing agreement, and then the real property disclosures, and then the radon. However, if you wanted the radon before the real property disclosures, you can just click these left or right arrows, and you'll see that it moved my radon to the left of the real property disclosures. You want to move back that way. Or if you wanted your contract at the end. This next step is the big step. We're going to get through it, but it's the design phase. But to be honest, with using Authentisign templates, there's just not that much that we have to set up here in the signing. This says it's preparing a 9-page document. So you'll see here we have our listing agreement. I'm going to try to zoom in on that for you just a little bit. There you go. So we'll see it's filled out. And you'll see down here at the bottom, it's already got my seller's initials, and it fills out my seller date. Right? And then at the bottom of the last page, it's got my seller signature already set up. Let's see, that's me. So we are good there, and their date down here. So your phone number and information is already on there too. Here's the real property disclosure. So these little circles over here are what are called option buttons, and that means they can select one of those 3, but never more than one of those 3. So you'll see this when we send it out. They can choose yes, no, or NA. But if they choose yes and then they change it to no, it pulls the circle filled out of yes, which is what we want on those. They've got a big area to type down here. They can check if additional pages are used. They sign and date here and sign down at the bottom. Last one is our radon. These are called optionality boxes because they can choose A or C or B or D, and you'll see how those work as well. And then they're signing and dating down here. So literally, it just so happens on these 3 listing forms that we don't have to do anything in the design phase to make changes to this signing. I'm going to go ahead and click next. It gives you the ability here, this is talking about the email, to either send the invitations or customize the invitation email subject and text. I'm boring, so I'm just going to let it send them out. So it says the Authentisign invitations were sent successfully. So let's see what Samantha got. I'm going to jump over to my email here. And as soon as it comes in, usually takes under a minute or 2. Let's see if it came into important. Nope. We're still waiting on it. There we go. So you'll see it's going to look like it comes from you or whoever you're logged in sending. So it looks like it comes from Paul Brown. And it says Authentisign invitation to review and sign documents for whatever you called that signing. So in this case, listing docs. Now, if you want to customize that, that's where you would use that customized email invitation. So I'm going to click on it. And it just has a little email here, but what your buyer or seller, whichever side you're working on, needs to do is click here to sign. That's going to ask them a couple questions. Also, don't freak out about this. It says preparing a 9-page document with 87 signing blocks. They will not be signing 87 things. When you're using the real property disclosure, I think it's something like 60 of those signing blocks are each one of those circles that they choose. So this is the first thing that comes up when you have a buyer or seller that uses transaction desk. They have options. They can either use, this is called the signature setup, they can use a fonted signature like this, and they can actually select from like 5 or 6 font styles too, if they just want it to look a little different. Or if they're on a tablet, smartphone, or something with a touch screen, they can choose to draw their signature if they would choose to do that. Typically, we tell people try to stick with the fonted signatures. It just makes things a whole lot easier. So I'll hit accept. I'm going to go with this fonted signature. And you'll see I'm now in the signing window. Now, this is important for you to tell your users. This is their opportunity to review those documents, okay? So if they want to read through, I'll zoom in on this again. Hopefully that'll make it a little easier. But this is their ability to, or this is their option to review and read what it is they're signing, because when they are ready to start signing, they come up here and they click the red start button, but it will immediately jump them to the first place they need to assign or initial. So I'm going to click start. You will see I get a red arrow on the left indicating this is the line you need to sign, initial, or do something on. And then they actually click on either their initial, signature, option box, whatever. So I'm going to click on my initials there, or her initials in this case. Down here to the bottom, and here's a signature, but you'll see it jump me down another page. And now we're into the real property disclosure. So this is great, but I want you to see how this works. So here's how they fill these out. Have I occupied it? Yes. Okay. But notice, if I were to come back up here, I can make changes. But if I choose no, it takes the circle out of yes, or same thing on your neck. So I'm just going to say yes, no, 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 all the way through here. I'm just clicking. And this is what they do. You'll see it's jumping me to the next one. And then my favorite, or everyone's favorite, is 23. We'll put a yes in that. And then if we need to fill out anything additional here, I can say 23, subject was used for meth production. Right? If you have additional pages there, although I always tell people this box will automatically shrink and grow as necessary. So if you have this entire box filled out in Authentisign, and you still check for additional pages, don't worry about it. You're probably not going to sell the house anyway. We will click on the seller's signature there and here. And now it jumps us down to these. So these are called option boxes. So you will see here, I've got two red arrows, one next to A and one next to C. If I check A here, I can no longer check C. Or I can, but when I check C, it removes it out of A. So it'll only allow them to choose one or the other, and the same thing with B or D. And they're signing down here. Once they are done signing everything, this blue complete button lights up at the top. And to finish the signing, they come and click on the blue complete button. They hit complete signing, and they are going to get a box that pops up that asks them for a password. They have two options. They can either type a password there and hit add password, or they can choose no thanks. Here's what it is. The only time we recommend they use a password is if they're using a shared email account. So as soon as these listing docs are signed, which they are now, and we complete this step, and our other signers are complete, they will get a copy of the documents they signed automatically by email. If they put in a password here, when they click on that email link, it will prompt them for that password before it shows them those documents. If we click no thanks, it just opens them like normal. So I'm going to hit no thanks. It says, hey, you're done. I want to show you a couple things that happened. First of all, you as the listing agent got notified by email. Also, the Samantha Neal is going to get a copy of those by email. But I want to show you where these documents live now that that signing is complete. I'm going to close this, go back into Transaction Desk. You'll see right now, just because I haven't refreshed my screen, but if I'm in signings, I've got a lightning bolt next to this signing for listing docs. And that means that this is in progress. But you'll see here, if I refresh my screen, and I'm just a little patient, I come back to signings. Now I have a blue ribbon on that. And that blue ribbon means that my signing is complete. So I'm going to click on the signing real quick just to show you a couple other things in here. So we can see in this signing that Samantha Neal authenticated and signed. Okay. We also have separate signed documents here, although this is not the best place to get them. I'll show you where to get those here in just a second. But it shows us everything that happened down here in history as well. It just gives us kind of a timeline. But where you want to get these documents is from your right side menu. Once they are signed, they become documents because they can no longer be edited. So you'll see in the documents section of this transaction, we have our exclusive right to sell, our real property disclosure, and our disclosure of information or radon hazards. And those all have a green lock next to the left of them. And that means that they are certified and digitally signed. And you can look at any of these. So let's just pull up our real property report, because that's the one I particularly like. And here you'll see here's a clear copy, all filled out and signed. Let me jump to the next page. Signed by our seller. And then these can be, we'll do this in another section, but these can be directly then imported back over to Innovia once you have that listing on the MLS. Same thing here in documents. If you wanted to email those, send those to somebody else, all you have to do is just check those boxes next to the contracts. You can come up to the basket and you have all those options that we did before as far as downloading, printing, faxing, things like that. So in 31 minutes, so I lied to you ever so slightly, that is preparing listing agreements with Transaction Desk, whether that be for printing them out or for doing them with Authentisign and getting them back. I will open it up for questions now. We've already got one that came in. Stacy asked, when creating the transaction for a new listing, what's the difference between Decatur MLS and Realist Decatur MLS? Tax searchability, yes. So Realist searches for searches the public record systems that we have access to. Typically on a listing, we would not use the MLS to populate that listing information. We would want to use public record, unless that listing was fairly new. Where we do use, and it's the same screen, where we do use the MLS information is when we're creating a sales contract, because we pull a lot of that information out of the MLS for populating the selling side of the sales contract. So that's that. Also for Central folks, please note sometime soon. But right now it says Decatur MLS and Realist for Decatur MLS, but we're all one MLS. There's no division between Decatur and the Central side at this point. If there's other questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end that recording.